Watch for the sacred disruptions of your life. Such pivotal moments that feel like chaos are actually an invitation inviting you deep within for radical change. That is what today is all about, the pivotal moments of choice when your past, present, and future all collide into one defining moment. Welcome to the Phoenix Rising podcast, y'all. I was thinking about these pivotal moments we have in life the other day, these moments of pure clarity and awareness, where it literally feels like our past, present, and future self all come together in this one moment, and you are faced with a choice to be who you've always been and accept what you have always accepted, or to choose to be somebody different. Because in every area or circumstance and experience in life, we're playing some sort of role. Most of it is unconscious, most of it is based off of limiting beliefs, past experiences. Most people are creating their future based out of their past, and they're not actually present to making decisions to choose differently. So a lot of times people just keep recreating from habit and from former experiences. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably somebody who is self aware and growth minded and is consciously working on being present and growing. And you have these moments. It's these moments where you're in a relationship or a friendship or a job or an experience. And when you started this relationship or friendship or job or experience, you started as one person. And everything about this situation lined up with who you were at that time. And then time goes on and you have one of these moments. You have one of these moments of clarity, of insight, of awareness, where you realize the person that you are presently is not the same person that you were at the beginning of the situation. And now you are faced with a choice where you can choose to be somebody different and move into the future, or you can choose to remain the same. And I always like seeing this. This is to give you a visual image of this. I see it kind of as if you can imagine this younger version of yourself. So, like this child version of yourself, whatever age you are, the present version of yourself, whatever age that is, and then this older, future, wiser version of yourself, like 60, 70, 80, 90, however old you want to make that version of. And the way I see these moments is you're kind of standing in a room with all three of you, and you have the younger version, which I would equate that to what I'm talking about of like the person you used to be at the start of a situation or a relationship. Then there's you in the middle, who you are today. And then there's this future self that's like holding the door open for you, giving you the opportunity to choose to move on and expand and grow and become somebody new. But you're not even aware that you have these choices until you have this pivotal moment. And I wanted to talk about these things because some of the things like in this quote, when we experience chaos in our life or disruption or what feels like a total tornado, can be some of the most pivotal moments. And what is happening is when our past, present, and future are colliding, where the person we have been no longer can continue to exist if we are going to grow and evolve and move down this other path in our life. Um, it's super complicated though, because I've talked about this before in other podcast episodes of the Bardos, the in between, because as you are growing and evolving, there's also a process of death and shedding and letting go. Obviously, I mean, from an energetic standpoint, not from a literal standpoint. And I mean, sometimes it is literal, like there is the dying of a relationship or the dying of an old self, whatever. But there's this process. And what keeps a lot of people stuck in life is they have these moments of awareness, but fear gets in the way of being able to let themselves grow, let go, evolve, and move on because it's scary. I mean, that's the reality of it is letting go is scary. It always is scary. And the reason being is because when we go through these moments of growth and when we start any kind of job or we start any kind of friendship or relationship, We start it because we want these people to be with us forever. We want these colleagues, we want these friendships to be with us forever. And at the time of the start, we are on the same page and we are on the same path and we are moving in the same direction. But then you kind of get to the fork in the road, the crossroads of destiny, where you both have to make a choice. And what we want to happen is when we recognize and we have these moments of clarity and awareness where we're like, hey, I'm not that person anymore. We want the people in our lives to grow with us, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes you reach those crossroads and you have to decide whether to let go of the idea or the path of who you're becoming to stay in alignment with your situation, your friendship, or your relationship, or to stay where you are and not do anything. And there's nothing wrong with that. See, the wonderful thing about life and like the universe in general is there is no right or wrong. Free will is in the works always. Like you're not going to be punished or anything like that. The only punishment is the fact that if you ignore or deny your own gut or intuition telling you the best path, then obviously like the quote unquote punishment is having to live with that, knowing that. Like it's kind of like when you lie, if you lie when deep down you know the truth and you've lied, nobody's going to punish you, but the punishment is your own guilty conscience. That's kind of how life works. Is like you have free will always and the choice to do what you know you need to do, but ultimately like nobody's going to punish you for it. So we have these moments where we have to make a choice and there is no right or wrong. There also is no right or wrong timing. That's the wonderful thing too is like if you let's say like you're learning a lesson. You're learning a lesson in maybe it's your work, maybe it's like self-worth and what you feel like you deserve and what you should be paid. And an opportunity comes up for you to step into this new level of self-worth, but maybe you're scared and there's too much fear wrapped around it because you're like, I don't know, I haven't like been here that long. I don't want to lose my job. What am I going to do? That's okay. If you're not ready to step into that new version of yourself, life isn't going to like be like, all right, well, there you go. That was the only opportunity you're going to get. No, it just means that you haven't totally embodied that new identity with new self-worth. And when you have, that opportunity will represent itself. And maybe not in that exact situation or scenario, but it will come up again and be like, are you ready now? Do you want to make this decision now? And you will get the opportunity to choose again. The same thing is true with friendships and relationships is we are always given the opportunity of choice. Sometimes though, we have not totally embodied who we are becoming in order to have the confidence to make that choice. So that opportunity goes away and that's totally fine. You stay where you are. And sometimes you need that to happen for you to get to the place of having the confidence to make the choice. Like sometimes, like an analogy, or not an analogy, this is an actual story. So somebody asked me one time if I have any regrets in life, and the short answer is no. No, because I'm going to give you the cliche reason, because I do believe that everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for us. We are always being guided to the direction that is best for our growth and who we are becoming. However, there are moments in life where knowing what I know now and knowing the person and the confidence and the self-belief that I have now, there are things that I would have done differently in life. And so using this analogy of like we get the opportunities or looking back on how different things would have shaped our path. So back when I was in high school, I was always an athlete. I always played. Everybody's like, "What sports did you play?" I did basketball, softball, competitive cheerleading, gymnastics. I did anything and everything that I could. I loved it. I loved being an athlete. However, I was not a confident athlete. Like it's kind of one of those weird things where like you know you're a good athlete, but you also like you have low self-confidence, so you kind of don't want to stand out and be different. But you also like don't have enough confidence to actually like go for what you want. So it was my junior, senior year. I was shortstop playing softball. Now I can look back and be like, I was actually really good at shortstop. I had like won a lot of different awards. And my coach at the time, he knew that I was like a good athlete, but I also didn't really have the confidence to perform at the level that I was capable of. And anytime, like, man, if I missed a grounder or if I missed anything, you didn't have to say anything to me. Like, he would just look at me and I would just put my head down because I knew. Like, I'm not one of those people. I don't need you to scold me. I don't need to talk about it. I am going to be my own worst critic. Like, I know. And so he always knew this. And this opportunity came up my senior year where they were taking all of the top players in, I don't remember, I think it was the state actually. I think it was the state of Florida, and they were bringing us all together into this game where there were going to be a lot of scouts and recruiters. I went to a small private school. This included like everybody, like public school, private school, all these things. And I remember my coach had like pulled me into his office and he was like, "Hey, there's this opportunity. I really think you should go for it. There's going to be a lot of scouts and recruiters." And I remember the fear that went through me because I was like, "You're crazy. I'm playing, like, yeah, I'm good playing against like small division and like this small private school arena. I'm not playing against like these huge schools where the girls are so much stronger and faster and all this stuff." I was like, "No way. Like, maybe I'm good like in this small little pond over here, but if you put me in that big pond, I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm not good enough. I can't do this." And we went back and forth for a while, and I remember I came home, I had, like, told my parents about it, and my dad was like, "I think you should do it." And I was like, "That's great. I'm not doing it." Also, I didn't have other friends that were doing it. Like, I would have totally at 16, 17, like, just, like, thrown into the lion's den of, like, all these people come from much bigger worlds than I come from, and I don't think I'm as good as everybody says that I am and all this stuff. And long story short, I didn't go for it. I didn't even show up. I didn't even try because I was too insecure. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't feel like I was good enough that I didn't even take the risk to try. And I think about this moment because I always wonder, because then my life like went down this whole other path of like college was a nightmare. I hated it. I went through the fast track, like whatever I had to do to like get in and out of there as fast as possible. That's what I did. And then I was lost, like trying to figure out like I don't really know what I want to do with my life. So I've thought of that moment before because I always like wonder what would have happened if I would have just tried. Like, maybe nothing, maybe I didn't get scouted or recruited, but maybe I did. I would have gone to a different college. I would have met different people. Probably wouldn't have gotten married at such a young age because I was so lost. But so I reflect a lot on these pivotal moments because they really do shape our destiny. And I do believe in like serendipity and synchronicities and a certain level of fate, but we are also always creating our life and our destiny based off our individual choices. So these pivotal moments show up for all of us, and they're opportunities that I do believe your soul on some level pulls in for you to try to help you grow, to try to help you evolve, to see if you're ready. Like, hey, like this was an experience, but you've kind of outgrown this entire experience. And I know it's scary, but if you're willing to let go and outgrow this, there's this whole other version of you that is waiting for you. There's this whole other level of you that is waiting for you. If you don't want to, that's okay. You can stay where you are. But once you have those moments of awareness where you see it, like I can't really explain it. It's where in I don't need to explain it because you've had this happen before where you're sitting there and you have the moment and you're like, this doesn't really work for me anymore, or this doesn't make sense for me anymore. And maybe you're not having that moment out loud, maybe you're having that moment internally. But once you're aware of it and you see it, you can't unsee it. Now it's up to you. Now you're standing there with like this past version of you, the present version of you, and the future version of you. And all three of you are like, "So, what are we going to do, boss? Are we going to stay here and take the route of comfort and safety? Or are we going to take a risk? Are we going to grow and let go?" And what happens for most people is I posted about this. It was either on Instagram or YouTube. By the way, if we're not connected on Instagram and YouTube, I post a lot more on there, little like clips and like personal things. So all those are in the description if you want to connect with me there. But I posted something about this a week or so ago on YouTube, talking about how we have these moments, we have these pivotal moments that define and shape our destiny in life. And the easy part is when we have a moment of awareness and empowerment. Those usually come together. Like awareness is empowerment, knowledge is empowerment. So when you have the awareness and the knowledge, you are now empowered to make the choice based on what you feel is best for you. But we have these like super heightened, empowered moments where you finally decide, like, I'm done with this. I'm going to grow. I'm going to move on, or I want to evolve, or I want to choose differently, or I'm going to take the risk, even if I fall flat on my face. Like, I want to do this. You have that moment of empowerment. That's the easy part. The hard part is when you have this moment of empowerment, but then you are faced with the decision of how bad you really want to move into this new version, even if it requires letting go of the people, places, and things that basically tell you they can't come with you. That's the hard part. So, what I mean by that is like, I like using relationships as an example. Say that there's a certain level of love. So, there's the saying, we always accept the love that we feel we most deserve. So, say that you accept love that it's neither good nor bad, but it's just a little less than what you really need or what you really want. And you accept that. But then throughout this journey in this relationship, you start to love yourself more. You start to like yourself more because you are loving and liking yourself more. The expectation of love in relationships is going to shift with that because it's going to reflect the relationship to yourself. So you have this moment. Maybe this is a very extreme example. Maybe you formally accepted abuse as a way of love. Maybe you thought like, all right, well, like I know I deserve love. A little bit of abuse is okay. It's not that big of a deal, whether that's verbal, physical, psychological, emotional, doesn't matter. Then you start to grow and you start to pay attention and you're like, you know what? I actually really like myself. I love myself. I deserve respect. I deserve real love. I deserve all these things. And you're going through this little metamorphosis. And then you have this heightened moment of empowerment that I'm talking about where you're like, maybe it's the last time you're going to be abused, the last time you let somebody walk all over you. And you're internally having this dialogue where you're like, no, you know what? Like, no, this isn't okay. I'm a wonderful person. I like myself. Like I love myself and I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. You have that moment. The hard part and the challenging part and where this new self is really going to be tested is when you then go back to the person who was your source of love and maybe who was abusive. And you're like, hey, enough is enough. This isn't okay. You can't do this anymore. I deserve better. And that person disagrees. And they're like, you know what? No, I'm still going to treat you the same. The hard part is when you have that happen, are you going to let that go? Let that relationship go and totally go on this new journey because you love and respect yourself? Or do you only decide that you deserve better and love and respect yourself and all these things when other people are doing it with you? Do you only decide to grow and evolve when everybody who's currently in your life decides to grow and evolve with you? What happens when they don't? What happens when you are a lone wolf and everybody's abandoning you on your level of growth? And I mean, that's like I said, that's an extreme, but what happens when you decide you want more for life or you want to grow in life and you get super excited because you want these friendships and these relationships and everybody to come along for the ride with you and everybody says no. Now they may not actually be like, no, I don't want to grow with you, but they want to continue to remain the same and do the same things. They want you to be the same person you've always been. Are you still going to commit to that growth and evolve? That is where people have a hard time because I think the reason a lot of people stay in jobs and friendships and in relationships that aren't really serving them is for that reason right there, is because somewhere deep down, you know, if I grow, these people aren't coming with me. And that sucks That sucks because nobody wants that. But the thing is, you have the opportunity in this life to live multiple lives, multiple versions of yourself. If you have a moment of awareness and you don't like who you are or who you've been playing, maybe, I mean, as always, I'm happy to use myself as an example. Um, I've talked before about like divorce and relationships and all those things. And like I reference that not because it's something that bothers me, but because it's probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Of the moment where I decided I no longer wanted to be this person. And what I mean by that is I no longer wanted to be this person who was in an abusive marriage. I no longer wanted to be this woman who was working a 9 to 5, doing nothing ambitious with her life. I no longer wanted to be that person that had low self esteem and didn't believe in herself. I no longer like just everything about that person's life. I no longer wanted to be her. Not in a way that I was beating myself up or being hard on myself, but in a way where, like I said, the past, present, and then the future path all collide into one. And it's like, hey, wake up. This is the life that you're living. This is the reality of who you are right now. You are this person. Be honest with yourself. And I think most people won't even acknowledge that. They won't even be honest with themselves. Like, and it's so easy when you have an outsider who can be like, hey, I know who you think you are, but this is who you really are. You are somebody who is a narcissist, who's hypocritical, who judges people, who is unreliable. And I don't know anybody that fits these traits. I'm just saying, this is who you are. Wake up to this. I am telling you this because you need to acknowledge it. And now you have a choice. This is who you are. Do you want to continue being this person or do you want to be somebody else? Hey, guy or girl, right now you are somebody who allows abuse. You are somebody who lets other people walk all over you. You are letting people take advantage of you in your work who are underpaying you and not respecting you. You have friends that don't actually show up for you. Do you want to keep being this person? It's fine if you do, but you have the opportunity to choose differently if you want to become somebody else. I cannot talk about this without also talking about the widespread epidemic of loneliness. A lot of people have been sending me messages about this and just like being an adult and trying to figure out like where you find your people and like how do you even navigate that. And like a lot of people turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, trying to connect. Like, I think the best thing you can do is when you are willing, able, and I don't want to say excited, but just willing and able to be alone. When you're willing to do that, when you don't need to be on your phone or have people messaging you 24/7 or sending you social media messages or hanging out with people all the time, when you are willing, able, and comfortable with the discomfort of being alone, that is when all the right people, all the right opportunities, everything you actually want can find you. But until you're willing to be alone, until you're really willing to like, listen, loneliness is not comfortable for anybody, but I will sit in the discomfort of loneliness in order to allow the space for the kind of people I actually want, for the kind of life that I actually want. It's not what most people do, though. Most people have these moments of awareness, these pivotal moments of choice. And they're like, you know what? I don't want to be this person anymore. This is who I want to be. And then they jump right into that. And that never works. And here's the reason that never works is because there cannot be a rebirth without a death. You cannot go from one life to another life. You have to allow processes. You have to allow the death of who you used to be before you can totally rebirth and become who you want to become. So I always suggest honoring the space in the bardos, in the in between of the death and the rebirth of another life. So one of the best ways you can do this, and like I know it sounds crazy, but I've done it so many times, is I think actually, not just I think, this has been proved scientifically. It is very hard to create real change and become somebody new while staying in the same environment of who you are no longer choosing to be. It's hard to do that because when you're trying to grow and evolve, but you're surrounded by people who know you for who you've always been, you're going to constantly feel resistance. It's going to be hard to let go and move on and become all these things that you want. So if you are going through a process of choosing, I don't want to be this person, or I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to be around these people anymore, I want to grow and become somebody new. The best thing that I suggest, go somewhere, even if it's just for like a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 weeks, whatever, by yourself that you have never been, that puts you in a place that is brand new where you have to be so present because you can't go and like, you don't have like your normal route. You don't have your normal people, your normal gym, your normal work. You don't have normal anything that it requires you to be so incredibly present that you have no choice but to create something new from the present instead of the past. And then once you have really embodied the energy of this new path that you're going on and this new person that you're becoming, if you want to go back to where you were, meaning like if you want to like leave where you temporarily decided to vacation to and go back to where you were, that's totally fine. Maybe you want to start something new. But you have to honor that space. You have to honor the space because otherwise, what happens is you end up jumping from one to the next. And then before you know it, you find yourself in the exact same relationships and situations and circumstances that you just left because there's an integration. Think of it like a software update. Like, hold on a second, we are still updating. No, you can't use your phone yet because it's going to take a second for us to reboot. It's kind of how your life and your soul works. Like, give it just a second. Like, get really comfortable with being uncomfortable of being alone. Go actually be alone. And then from that space, if you will just sit with all that emptiness and sit with the void, you actually are allowing all the new to come find you and come in because you're not trying to force it. You're not trying to fill it. You're not trying to recreate it. So that's one of the things that I want to talk about today. And even somebody asked me about like what this whole, like what Phoenix Rising is about with this podcast. And I want to read it to you guys because I sent it to this person of like, this is literally the reason why I call this Phoenix Rising. And most people don't know the symbolism behind this, but it's associated with the East. And in a lot of cultures, the great phoenix bird also held that alchemical wisdom of the direction of the coming dawn and the daily promise of rebirth. But for rebirth to be possible, death must come first. So when this phoenix was approaching the end of its life, it would begin to build a nest of aromatic branches and spices. It would then catch a light, and the bird would be consumed in the power of its own flames, everything that it ever knew that it was, burning completely to ashes. This basically represents that the transformation, fully, the pain of utter and complete destruction must be experienced. There's a type of metamorphosis, which is more gradual, a shape shift, a more gentle flowing evolutionary change. But the Phoenix teaches us that it is not always the way of life to hold on too firmly to who we used to be. When this iteration is nearing its end, will bring more harm than good, denying the natural order. This is why the bird willingly builds its own fire and participates in the path that it must take of its own death and destruction. In some legends, the rebirth is quick, coming even before the flames have died down, and some tell of the rebirth taking more time before the phoenix rises from the ashes. The new, reborn phoenix is greater, more powerful, and more beautiful than its previous incarnation, and it is both the surrender to the process and the quality of the ashes which create this new, improved bird. That is why I call this Phoenix Rising, because I think that that is an ever lasting process of life if you allow it. If you allow yourself, and when you're in one of those moments, when you're having those pivotal times in life where you're like, I can't be this person anymore. And it happens in relationships, it happens into everything. Let yourself totally just surrender to that knowing, that acknowledgement, that awareness with the mindset and understanding of this. There cannot be this rebirth into this stronger, wiser, more empowered version of yourself without you first letting go and allowing the death of everything that you used to be. So sit in the bardos. Sit in the bardos, knowing that you are in the in between. Let the space be there. Don't try and fill it. If you're going through a big shift and you can feel it, you can feel everything coming to the surface, and that you are facing one of these moments, and you find yourself where the past, younger version is sitting with the present and focused on the future and that open door. I hope that you make the choice that supports your growth and your evolution in who you can become. But if you're not ready, know that the opportunity doesn't go away, it will come back, and know that there is no right or wrong choice. But I do hope that you choose the opportunity in the direction that moves you into a higher, more evolved, wiser version of yourself. And like, life is never ending with opportunities for us to continue to grow and reinvent ourselves. I've done this so many times in my life. I've lived so many lives in this life, and I've got so many more to live that that is one thing I did want to talk about too, is it's kind of it's kind of a hard process more than it needs to be, because most of people in our society do the same thing for the rest of their life. It is a very, like, if it was a job description, it would say, hey, you grow up, you go to college, you get a degree, you get married, you have babies, you teach them the same thing, figure out your career until you retire. Then when you retire, your grandparents, you take care of kids, rinse and repeat for the next generation. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. It makes a lot of people really happy. But I have a feeling you probably want a different path for yourself if you're listening to this. So, going back to a lot of the people that are talking about loneliness, the loneliness comes from just doing something different. And that's okay, because in the loneliness that a lot of you guys talk about that you're experiencing, of feeling like there's a lot of people in your life, but there's not a lot of people who understand you, you're not alone in that. I can tell you that because of the messages that I get in that. You're not alone in having pivotal moments where it feels like your life is chaos and you're faced with really hard decisions. You're not alone in wanting something different than the status quo. You're not alone in wanting to be somebody different. But if you are willing to, like I said, let go, be alone, and allow this process of transformation to happen, you will eventually find new people, places, and experiences that are in alignment with the person that you are now becoming. So don't let that scare you. I do hope that if you are in a moment of destiny where your choices are shaping the next path for you, that you choose the path that empowers you, and your future self is like so proud of you for being brave enough and courageous enough to take that path, and not the path that you're choosing just out of fear. Either way, though, neither is right or wrong. You're still loved and you're still a wonderful soul, regardless. All right, that is enough for today's Phoenix Rising podcast. If you have not already, subscribe, as I'm knocking out this stuff every single week. Also, shoot me a message or leave me a comment, either like as a review, you can leave it as a comment on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever you prefer to be, and let me know what resonated with you. Did you like this topic? Is there anything else you want me to talk about? But thank you for joining me. Thank you for letting me talk about this with you. And yeah, sit with yourself and make the choice that inspires and empowers you, and start the journey to become who you know you need to become. And I'll see you in next week's episode. Bye, guys.